So this is the latest from Yorgos Lanthimos, who made Dogtooth and The Lobster. It is basically an ancient tale of revenge and retribution and justice transplanted from Greek myth to 21st century America that starts like a very much sort of traditional Yorgos Lanthimos black comedy with an element of surrealism and then turns into something altogether more unsettling. Colin Farrell is a heart surgeon with a materially successful life. He works in a gleaming hospital, lives in a big home with his glamorous wife, played by Nicole Kidman, and 2 thriving children. Like all Lanthimos' characters, and again, he's working with Efthymis Philippou, his co-writer, his existence seems alienated and artificial. He talks in a strange kind of disconnected staccato rhythm as if playing a role. And this is something which is very common in Lanthimos' films. He's very specific about dialogue. He has an absolute rule about never giving characters backstory. Everything is in the moment. Everything is what is said. He said that dialogue is like the music in a piece of, the notes in a piece of music, and you play the wrong note and you can hear it immediately. Anyway, so Stephen has this strange, he looks like he's playing a role, and he appears to have this strange thing going on in the background, and a relationship with a very awkward teen named Martin, Barry Keoghan, who we saw in Dunkirk. He meets him in cafes. Martin turns up at his work. Stephen gives him expensive gifts. Something is up between them, but you're not sure what it is. But whatever it is, it seems uncomfortable and slightly sinister. Eventually, Martin is invited over to the surgeon's house, where he impresses the kid and the mother, and to some extent, Nicole Kidman's Anna. Here's a clip.
What a charming boy.
Isn't he?
Yes, very. How did his father die?
Car crash. Driving home. Smashed into a pole. Killed instantly.
How long have you known him?
Quite some time. He was a patient of mine years ago.
Did you go to the funeral?
I did go, yes.
Why didn't I go with you?
I think I told you about it, but you were busy or something.
You should tell him to come round again.
I will. He'd be great company for Bob. I thought next time I could take both of them out somewhere for a bike ride.
It's funny just even listening to that clip, and you hear in that deadpan delivery so much that's being said whilst being unsaid. You immediately get the sense that he's hiding something. Something's not right. Something's out of kilter. And that off-kilter feeling is absolutely kind of key to Lanthimos' film. And then what happens is it starts to turn into something that becomes generally really creepy. Firstly, Stephen, you get the sense that he has a secret. Martin has this creepy air about him. He's a little bit like a young Norman Bates. He looks like he might have wandered off the set of We Need to Talk About Kevin. He hangs around outside the house in the dark. He talks in a way that implies that he's innocent and helpless, and yet somehow he does it with an authority which is weirdly challenging. And slowly, the kids start to get sick. They develop a mystery illness that the doctors don't know how to deal with. And meanwhile, the camera follows our central characters through the halls of the house and through the halls of the hospital, exactly like the cameras in The Shining. All these kind of low, prowling, moving shots, all these high glides that almost imply spirits looking. I mentioned the overhead shot in Murder on the Orient Express, which I think is a really, really lovely setup. It's all done in one take in which they discover the body. Well, there's a shot that's not dissimilar to that in Killing of a Sacred Deer. And although the two films couldn't be more different, it is really interesting the way that looking down on things sort of seems to imply fate, seems to imply a force that is bigger than the individual characters. And slowly you start to realise that that's kind of what the story is about. It's about people in a modern world who believe in choice and freedom and all the rest of it, finding themselves stuck in the kind of steel-like jaws of fate. The music cues are very alarming. If you were listening outside, as our Jethro said, he was, outside, and you heard the music cues, you'd think I'm just watching a straight horror movie. To some extent, this is a film that starts to look towards the early sort of torturous games of Michael Haneke. On the other hand, there's an element of it that you could say it's kind of like a Saw movie for the art house crowd. It's one of those films in which there's an absolute moral imperative that is going to be played out through something which is a ritualized form of game. the whole thing moves from dark comedy to something much more threatening and disturbing in a way which you almost kind of don't notice until it's happened. It has a juxtaposition of the ancient and the modern, which I think Ira Levin, who wrote Rosemary's Baby, would have appreciated. The way in which you get a sense of something that is from a way, something that is timeless, something that is ageless, happening in the here and now. I hate to invoke this, but one of the things that The Exorcist did was, ancient force, modern house, and that's what really creeped people out. Well, there's something about Killing of a Sacred Deer that it takes place in these antiseptic hospital corridors, this big gleaming house, this absolutely sort of spotless, modern, weird, almost robotic life. It's very darkly funny. It's very, very ambiguous. I felt very uncomfortable watching it, and the final sort of act of it I found very distressing, and I haven't really stopped thinking about it since then. So I think that since what Lanthimos likes above all else is a sense of unease, to put the audience on the back foot and go, you're not quite sure where this is, are you? You're not quite sure what world we're in. You're not quite sure whether to laugh or recoil. And I did that all the way through.